Alrighty. Good afternoon. Wait for some folks to join, and we will get started. Not sure if I have anything yet. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Alex. That's helpful. Alrighty. So, good afternoon. This is Josh Siegel, at least one of the founders of YCRS 2.0, and wanted to take a little time today to talk about a few different topics. One is the history of YCRS 2.0. Another one is why investing in yourself is so important. And the third is talking about getting into racing later in life. And I'm going to keep an eye on comments down here. Well, I've done webinars before. I've never done a Facebook Live, so there's always a first time. From the background, like how did I get into this community? How did I get into the motorcycling space? I mean, I grew up riding bikes, dirt bikes, like many of us did as a kid. I grew up in central Connecticut and had different bunch of street bikes through college, post-college, but it was sort of off and on. And I had heard in the late 90s about the Freddie Spencer School, all right, which was the predecessor to YCRS. I took the Freddie School, first time in Las Vegas. It was probably 115 degrees. I couldn't have been hotter. And we just learned amazing drills. Like, it's the same basic curriculum that has continued, but all of a sudden it started to put a lot of logic into what I was learning and how I was riding. And so I had never gotten my knee down on a street bike, probably never particularly smart on the street. But at that track in Las Vegas, with the proper coaching, I was able to get my knee down, which scared the heck out of me the first time it happened. I thought I was going to crash or something. And I found that whole curriculum so fascinating. I took it again in Utah, what was Miller Motorsport Park. And then I also decided I was going to try other schools. So I tried Schwann's, I tried California Superbike School many times through level 4 times. I did the Penguin School. So I tried different curriculums because I found that while there was a theme across all of them, they all had a different approach. One of the things that I liked the most about the Freddie Spencer approach, which then became YCRS with Nick Ionach, was that you weren't given bits of information over time. It wasn't, hey, come to level 1 and you'll learn these 8 skills, and then come to level 2 and you'll learn 8 more. No, it was teaching the entire curriculum the whole time. Now, one could say a downside is you're drinking from a fire hose. It is a lot of material to have to cover in a short period of time. But the reality is you shouldn't leave a school not knowing the critical keys to riding. You just shouldn't, right? You also should make sure that you're touching on all the proper controls. Some schools back years ago, they weren't teaching anything about using the front brake. I'm not making that up. I think that school has since changed, but for years they were teaching without using the front brake, which makes no sense because of the way a motorcycle is designed. But we'll talk about that another time. It was 2013. If anyone remembers, that's when the government in the United States had shut down. We sort of had a government stop. And I had some idle time. I was running my company, Stone Castle. And we had a couple of weeks where we were supposed to be doing something, going to market and a financial transaction, and everything was shut down. So I had idle time, which I don't normally have idle time. And I saw an article that YCRS was being closed down. I'm like, no. YCRS can't close down. I mean, it literally saves lives. So I reached out to Nick and I hadn't talked to him in a while. And I was only a 3-time student of the school. And I asked what was happening. And I basically heard that the owners of Miller had decided that cars were the future for them and motorcycles were not, and they were going to close down the school. I just said that's not going to be acceptable, and whether they would be open to trying to recreate something originally on the East Coast, because really most of the schools are West Coast based or Central. But we didn't have a very good East Coast school that was, I thought, of that caliber. Long story short, they agreed. We contacted Yamaha. They got back on board. We contacted Arai. They got back on board. And A-Stars and all of our sponsors came right back in a major way. And then it was rebuilding. We had to change the way the school operated. We wanted to make sure that we didn't have employees, but that our leaders and top instructors were owners for the first time in 18 years plus of being the Freddie School. And so we did that. And so now where you have more than half of the school owned by its leaders, or as Nick likes to say, the inmates now own the asylum. But these are pretty good inmates to have. You now have a dedication level and a focus and a sense of ownership and pride that's just very different than what you had before. Same great curriculum, although I would say it's evolved over the years as bikes have evolved, as traction control and ABS and many other things have come into the mix of how bikes are operated. The curriculum has continued to expand. And I think that's one of the most powerful things, and we'll talk about that with investing in yourself, is this isn't the school of there's one way to do it right. It's called the Champions Riding School and ChampU because our instructors and our leaders study every year what the best riders in the world are doing. What are they doing different this year than last year? Is that something that would be helpful for street riding or track riding? And so the curriculum continues to evolve based upon how the best riders in the industry are evolving in their skill set. And that's something that I really haven't seen elsewhere, is that openness and dedication to recognizing if there's a better way, then we'll change and we will teach you to change. But there are also very important principles that aren't negotiable, right? Having the umbrella of direction, right? Not getting onto the throttle until you can see your exit, or not getting off the brakes fully until you're comfortable with your speed and direction. These are just basic principles of the physics of the way a motorcycle works. They're non-negotiable. They're non-modifiable, if that's a word. So those things have to be taught. But there are things at the margin that can be adjusted depending on how things are evolving. So we pulled together a marketing team. We pulled together a head of operations, and Keith Culver has done a fantastic job since the start of building structure and discipline around operations, fiscal discipline. All right, we had Nick, and of course Chris came on as the president of the organization. But it's the community around it that never fails to impress. And what makes my heart the warmest is when I'm going to a school to teach, sometimes I just go to attend, is the number of students at the end of a 1 or 2 day school who come up and say, the attitude of your team is unbelievable. Like, everyone is in a positive can-do attitude. Everyone is helpful. And you don't see that in service businesses very often. You know, and it's not because we're paying them $1 million a year per person, not in a motorcycle school. It's because they love it. They love teaching. They love people. They love motorcycling. And for them, this is a treat. This is an ice cream sundae. This is not a chore. They want to come and teach and spend that time and see 20 or 30 riders come in one way. And it doesn't matter if they're 70 years old, have been riding their whole life, or they're 15 and just learning. They come away with an entirely different approach to riding, but also to driving, also to life. Champions habits. And you can't expect to be excel in whatever you do at life if you can't make your bed in the morning or clean the dishes, right? There's a process to life, and sort of having your mantra, which does apply on the track, but where am I? What am I doing? I actually taught my kids that, and they shared it at their school, their middle school, and their teachers loved it because it's a grounding moment. Where am I? What am I doing right now? I need to be completely present in this situation. Because most things we do that get us in trouble is usually we weren't focused, we weren't paying attention. So YCRS 2.0, I couldn't be more proud of. We launched ChampU this year. We've had this idea for many years. There's much, much more we have coming in the future. Remote learning, real-time remote learning. There's things that we want to continue to bring this curriculum to the broadest possible audience, but also we want to increase the safety of the sport and bring more people in. So it's not a sport, but it's a lifestyle. And that it doesn't apply to just the track. Right? It doesn't apply just to race bikes. It applies to ADV bikes and cafe racers and naked bikes. And doesn't matter. Cruisers, it's the same thing. I mean, I have 10 bikes today of all types. And whether it's riding a cruiser or an on-road off-road dual sport or a super naked still racing, in CCS and ARMA, it's the same skills. It's absolutely the same skills. So when I was looking at the school and made that decision to invest, pretty substantial amount of money with no hope that it would come back, I didn't do this for a rate of return. I did this because of the love of the school, the curriculum, and the lives that it changed. But the team has done an amazing job, and it's doing well, right? And it's doing well because of people like you, the people who are listening right now, right? Who recognize you're never good enough, right? I don't think Tiger Woods in golf ever says, "Man, I'm good enough. That's it. Don't need to practice." No, we all do in whatever we do, and I think you'll find that mentality from anyone in the school, right? From a Chris Paris or a Kyle Wyman. Doesn't matter if you're on the podium, right? You can always do better. And it's that constant investing in yourself that matters, right? That's what's critical. When I sort of migrated from a street and dirt rider to the track, again, as I said, my first experience was in Vegas with Freddie Spencer, but I also had a friend, Damien in New York, who was organizing track days, and I had really never done track days. And so I started with one of his track bikes, 'cause my bikes weren't really track-oriented bikes. I was hooked very quickly. Then, of course, got involved with YCRS, which gave me a fair amount of time to practice and learn and listen to the curriculum over and over and over and over and over. And so I decided to start getting my racing license, and I did that with Absolute Cycle, which I don't think exists anymore, in New Jersey. Did my first races, found pretty quickly that I could go at a really good pace. And I, for basically 2 years, was on the podium, first, second, third in pretty much every race. Always battling with a friend of mine, Vasily, who is kind of a dear friend and my arch nemesis, but we'd always, have a beer together. We were always swapping paint for who was first or second, and I had the best time. But I didn't have enough time because I was running a business, my company, that I couldn't travel to race. At this point, I'm in my 40s, approaching 45, and I have to be full time. I have 2 kids. I have a company with 70 plus employees, and that needs to be my focus. And by the way, I can't crash, right? I need to be there on Monday to run the company. So when I did race, I was top of the podium pretty consistently, but I had to sort of choose where and when I could spend my time. So when it came to the nationals, and I had never been to Daytona in my life. Obviously, ever since a kid, I've watched races at Daytona. And I called up Nick, and I'm like, "What tips?" And he gave me some tips about the track, but it was hard enough getting down there. I had a friend bring the bike down for me, really great favor. And I showed up. I had 2 practice sessions. I had just had some surgery on my back about 2 months earlier because I had a disc that slipped. So great way to start the race. And I was on a 210 horsepower BMW X Superbike that I had bought from a racer and another dear friend of mine, Larry Pegram. And so I learned this track, didn't realize that you're pulling 2 Gs going around this at 197 miles an hour. And just focus, practice, learning the track, mapping out the track, all the things that the team has taught over the years, right? About where my braking zone should begin and end, right? Given my speed and pace, and making sure that I'm identifying what's the fastest corner, where, it's the one that's going to be the most important corner, is the one before the longest straight. So mapping out that track to figure out where can I get my advantage, as a not so young racer. And I had to be cautious because I couldn't push my body as much as I would have liked to, especially when I was 30 or 25, because I had some back issues. So I couldn't hang off the bike as much as I would have wanted to, so I had to compensate. So it had to be great drives coming out of the corners and carrying speed into the corners. And lo and behold, as you can see here in the photo, in the Formula 40 class, so the over 40-year-old class, I won the national champion. And it was unbelievable. My wife never comes to races, it's just not her thing, but she came to this race, and when I won, she almost tackled me. And the chaplain from CCS, such a great guy, he literally had to catch me and the bike because she didn't realize I don't have a kickstand on a race bike, so she tried to tackle and a hug. But it was an amazing feeling winning the national, especially because I had to start near the back of the pack. As I mentioned, I didn't have enough seat time to race at other tracks other than New Jersey for the most part. And so you get gridded in the national based upon points. I was 2/3, 3/4 of the way back in every class, and I was in 4 classes. So I had to pass a lot of people to get to the front. But I was first national champion in Formula 40. I always forget the exact ones. I think I was second in Unlimited Superbike. I was third in GTO, and I forgot the 4th class that I raced in. This was back in 2015, but it was quite nice. It was quite nice. When I think about investing in myself and being able to get to that point, it was the practice. And it wasn't just the practice at the school. It was the practice away from the school, right? It's every time I'm in a vehicle, whether it's a street bike or a car, if I'm trying an exit ramp, I'm thinking about trail braking into that ramp. I'm thinking about, do I have, the umbrella of direction? Can I see my exit, right? Can I start to add throttle? It permeates everything I do. Everything I do. I'm a pilot as well. When I fly, it's the same structure and discipline. It's always about, using the checklist, exact rotation speeds. So you just find that whatever you do, if you really let it hit you here, it is going to permeate whatever you do. And I can't think of a reason, and please comment if there's something you could think of. I can't think of a reason that it would make anything worse in your life. Having sort of the champion habits, right? The discipline, the focus, the understanding of how a tire grips, and that you don't come off the brakes going into a turn because you have no control. You're taking the footprint of the tire away, right? You, rather than loading the tire so you can work the tire, you're unloading it, reducing your contact patch. That applies to many, many things, right? So all of these skills apply to whatever bike you ride. And I think that's something that's important to think about. Is I have so many friends who buy a bike and they immediately say, I need to change the suspension. I need to, flash it. I need to get, ECU, and I need to get all of these things. And nothing wrong with that. I mean, I modify my bikes like anybody else does. But that's not the first thing I do. The first thing that I do is make sure I'm investing in myself. Because I'll go faster on a bike if I know how to ride that bike to its potential stock first before I start adding things. And the great part is investing in yourself. It applies to every bike you own and ever will own. The absolute best investment. Every bike does ride a bit different, right? A cruiser is going to have a different way you're going to handle the brakes, front and rear, than a race bike. It's the same controls, but you're going to use it to different degrees of application. You can't lean a 750-pound Harley over as far as you can an R1. And so you're going to have to make adjustments, body position, right? You're going to have to give yourself more time to brake, right? Start braking sooner, lighter, longer. There's all of these different tools help you enjoy riding more because you feel less tentative. For many of you who have been to the school or taken the school or at least heard some of it, right? When we go to the brakes, when we're nervous. And that's how it should be, right? But imagine if you're a little less nervous, a little longer, because you feel that you have the skills and control. Well, that's a little more fun. Picks up the pace a little. If your eyes have been trained to look through the corners, way through the corners, no, even earlier than you're thinking, way through the corners, everything slows down. Your reaction times can be much quicker, right? Which means you have more time to adjust to a rock in the road or a car coming across the line. All of these things just make your days more enjoyable. And you can get more out of that bike than you would imagine. I have a 1962 vintage BMW. I love riding, right? It's completely transporting. It has a whopping 40 horsepower on a good day. I'll take that bike out and be surprised just riding with friends on the street. Sometimes they can't keep up, right? I'm on a dinosaur vintage drum brake, but because I can keep the momentum, I understand how that bike is meant to be ridden, that I'm getting the maximum out of it. And I can feel the bike's enjoying that because it's saying, okay, you understand what to do with me, and I can keep such a great pace, right? So those are all the great benefits of taking this kind of an education and applying it. So when we were thinking about ChampU, it was also trying to build upon the same curriculum, but doing it in a way that I had seen in another part of my life, which is aviation. So there's a school that's been doing it since literally you had VHS tapes, the King School. And it's probably one of the most preeminent schools for aviation, remote, right? Books, videos, of course, now it's online. And they're still doing it, like 35 years, 40 years later. And that is how most people who maybe aren't professional, airline pilots, but your average person who, flies a little plane or rents a plane from time to time, that's how they learn. And the safety record coming out of that has been fantastic. And that's something that we wanted to make sure that at someday we could develop the same approach. So not just videos. Great to look at videos. YouTube's fantastic for learning things. Of course, if you make sure the information you're listening to is correct. And that's something about making sure that who's ever presenting does have the right knowledge and skill set, and also communication skills. But to be teaching the material and doing it in an environment where you can have quizzes, right, and be tracking scores, which that doesn't work for any of the online video servicing fees, right? It's truly a school. That's why you don't see Arizona State University, teaching on Venmo or any of those forums. They have their own construct. Because when you want to measure the retention of the material and make sure that the students are understanding, that's a very important part of it, right? And if you come to our school, then ChampU didn't even cost you anything; it's just credited back to you, right? We want to share all of this learning and enjoyment with as broad an audience as possible. Right? Manufacturer agnostic, forum agnostic. If you're a gymkhana or a amateur racer or just a cruiser or AD, whatever, it doesn't matter. You want to be able to use these skills, and you want to make sure that on a Monday, all of your limbs are still intact and that you can go to work and that you have nothing but fond memories of the weekend, whether that's covered in mud on dirt bikes or on street bikes. We want to make sure that anybody can have access to this type of material. And when I think back to 2013, I think it was October 2013, and heard the school was going to close, to where we are today, with fleets across the U.S. teaching almost every track we can get to, and now with ChampU. I couldn't be more proud of the team couldn't be more proud of the culture, the students, especially the return students who have such a high return rate. And yet every time they come, they say, I learned more this time. I learned more this time. It's not, we didn't teach a different curriculum, but they learned the curriculum to a different degree. And that's what's critical. So I would always encourage you, if you have questions, to reach out to us. We try to be as available as possible. If you need help with anything, or you have a suggestion, or you would like to organize a school specifically for XYZ. Hey, I have 20 friends who really want to learn to ride, and we don't want to do, the local riding program. We want to learn to ride properly. Give us a call. We can put that together, right? Or, hey, could we make a YCRS coach, champion certified coach available to go riding with us? We're going to do a day in the hills, X, wherever X is in the country. Could we have someone teach us while we're out there? Give us a call. We're a school, but more importantly, we're an open community. And we encourage people to ask, challenge, try. Trying is important at the school, right? You're trying to learn, but then try these skills, right? Actually put them into work. Pick a parking lot. Work on, picking a point, and that's the apex of a corner, right? Work on trail braking. Work on using the first 5% of the throttle so delicately, right? The first 5% of the brakes so delicately, right? It's quick. Load that tire before you work the tire. Weight your pegs. I recently bought a pretty heavy bike from a dealer, and the salesman I've known off and on for years, and he was telling on his bike that he has a hard time getting the bike to turn left. And so I asked him to sit on a bike. Right? This was just casually. Sit on a bike, show me how you go left. He wasn't moving his body. Now, this is a cruiser, so, he's not hanging off of this. I said, well, you've got about 25 to 30 pounds right here. Why aren't you tilting it? And he's like, is that going to make a difference? I said, well, if you put your weight on that inside foot in the turn and just drop your head a little. You don't have to move your butt. You're on a cruiser that's going to kind of hold you in. All right? Tell me what you think. Do that over the weekend. He called me up on my cell phone on a Sunday to say, holy cow, this has changed everything. I not only go to the left better, I go to the right better as well. Because he never took a course, because he figured, I'm not a racer. I'm not a fast street bike rider. I'm a cruiser guy. And he always reminds me when I talk to him, it's like, that changed, just that little bit of advice you gave me changed everything. I enjoy riding so much more. I feel so much more in control of that bike. It does what I want it to do. And before, I kind of felt like I was a bit of a passenger. And I don't know how old he is. He's probably mid-50s. But that's it. Changed his life. He's been riding his whole life. And it's just these little nuggets, these little bits. That's why people keep coming back to the school, because they come and they hear something different than they did the last time. And because they maybe have skill 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 down pretty well, now they can really focus on skill 6, whatever 6 is for them, right? It's different for everybody. And they can spend the time, right? And even come back as a champ grad if they've come several times and say, I want to work with, Isaiah, or I want to work with Kyle, or I want to work with whoever, and I really want for the next 2 days to work on these 2 things, or 1 thing, or 3 things. And you come away from that school, and all of a sudden, your comfort level, your safety margin, your speed, if that's what you care about, it goes up again. Still for me, I'm still finding time. And I get onto a track, and it's not about getting the fastest lap. Sometimes I'll run a particularly slow lap just so I can work a corner over and over and think about what could I have done better in that corner? Okay, let's go around. Let's do it again. And so, kind of working on wrapping up here because I want to be cognizant of our time. It is an honor and a pleasure to be speaking to you today. That's first and foremost. Second, thank you so much for your support for YCRS and the team. We kind of lost that for a moment there. Highly recommend that you come. And again, my name is Josh Siegel, one of the instructors and one of the founders of YCRS 2.0. And thank you very much for listening today and being with us. And hopefully we'll see you at the school soon. I will be at the school in about a week and a half at NJMP. Looking forward to it. And hopefully some of you were there. Have a wonderful week and see you next week. Take care.